Welcome back to the morning show here on the Rise News. I remain Adesoa Omoruan.
I remain Rufai Yosemi.
I remain forever Sheito Atigari. Let's get
I don't know about forever, Sheito. But okay, let's go to the business of today. Traffic congestion is one of the most prevalent transport challenges in urban cities anywhere around the world, and that's including Lagos, a situation that has increased demand for efficient and cost-effective transport infrastructure in order to reduce the volume of vehicular movement on the roads. But more often than not, the infrastructure is unable to keep up with growing mobility.
And that is why property and land values tend to increase in areas with expanding transportation networks and increase less rapidly in areas without such improvements.
Since Lagos State is known for leading the trail in transport improvement in Nigeria, especially with the introduction of bus rapid transport, popularly called the BRT, the latest move by the operators to increase the fares may not go down well with commuters. In fact, it's not going down well. So joining us to discuss the transportation in Lagos is the Managing Director of Primero Transport Service, one of the BRT operating companies in the States. And it's a joy talking to you.
Mr. Fola Tinubu.
Mr. Fola Tinubu, let us go straight to it.
Thank you very much for having me this morning.
We Lagosians are not happy.
Why are you not happy?
Because you're increasing the fares in BRT buses.
I've just...
Maybe we should clarify that.
Let's clarify that first.
Because the news is rife that you're about to increase.
What I said I did an interview on Monday, and I said we plan to approach the regulators to seek an increase in fares. I did not announce an increase in fares.
Okay, good.
I still have to sit with the regulators and the governmental agencies to work something out. But the question that everybody needs to answer is this. If you want a good service, it has to be paid for. The question is who pays for it? And it's a debate that we should have. Do we want the BRT to be a sustainable business and that 10 years, 20 years, 30 years from now is still around? Or do we want something that will disappear in the next few years and we go back to the Okada and Danfo mode of transportation? It's an honest discussion that we should have, that the commuters should sit, operators should sit, and the government people should sit, and we work something out, because you cannot pass the responsibility, social responsibility of a government to a private company.
It's interesting that you've mentioned Okadas and Danfos because, you know, the masses look at the BRT as their last hope. It's the one thing that they can rely on to get from point A to B. Now, what type of increase are we looking at? Because, I mean, obviously, you've mentioned that it's still an upward review, but I'm sure you have an idea in mind because there are certain things that you want to change.
Of course, there's some certain things I want to change, but until I sit with the regulators, I cannot unilaterally say, this is what, is going to be.
But you do have in mind to review this upward. And it's an interesting conversation we would have this morning because in 2017, you also approached the regulator.
Can I say something to you? You know, in the last 15 years, bus price has only gone up once in Lagos.
Okay.
In 15 years.
Okay.
Despite inflation.
Despite inflation. Okay. Once. And that was 3 years ago.
And let me ask you, because it was the same conversation we had in 2017, March to be precise, when there was an upward review. And you approached the regulator, the government, and said, prices of running the business, for instance, your tire, your petrol, and your oil has gone up, astronomically. But it was 2 years down the line to seem as if you are passing the cost of operation to the Lagosians, the people.
And that's what I said earlier. We need to have an honest discussion because I understand the social nature of the business, okay? But the business also has to be viable. A private company, if we're a governmental agency, we can continue to pile up losses because at the end of the day, the government can write it off. But a private company cannot continue to pile up losses. Eventually, it will go out of business. And if it goes out of business, it will affect everybody.
Okay, let me get this right. Let's get right the modus operandi. As a private company, if you're rolling it full on, that means you get the buses. But correct me if I'm wrong. The government still get the buses. Hence, the last...
No. The BRT, the government did not get. This particular one, we bought the buses.
Why was that last brouhaha about former Governor Ambody and buses
without getting approval?
I mean,
those buses are separate from our buses.
Okay.
We bought our buses 2013 and 2014.
And those are the same buses you're still using?
That's the same one we're using. The Lagos State government, under the previous administration, bought 820 buses. Right now, they are running about 150 of it. And also, they've given some to the present governor has mandated them to give some to the civil servants to make it easier for the civil servants to get to work and to get back home. But quite a few of them are not on the road right now. But that's a Lagos State government issue. It doesn't have anything to do with Primero.
So you bought your own buses?
We paid for our own buses.
And you brought them in?
And we brought them in 434.
Buses?
Yes.
Okay. As a Lagos resident who is watching and who is here, sometimes I use the BRT buses on the Ikorodu corridor, which you run. Justify this intended increase for me from 2017 to now. What has changed?
A lot has changed. Even you will accept that. Are you buying the same? Are you paying the same price for everything you buy now as 3 years ago? Obviously, no. And I'll give you an example. It may be temporary, but because of the problem in the Middle East, the price of diesel shot up overnight since last week. We bought diesel yesterday at 250 naira a liter. We have to buy it. Because if we don't buy it, the buses can run. There's so many things that's out of our control. And when they go up...
And that's because diesel has been fully deregulated, it's not subsidized.
Precisely. Yeah. When they go up, we have to, deal with it. And if we don't do it, the buses cannot run. And it's not every time that prices go up or something like that we have to, But all over the world, annually, people look at the price, transports. And the one that everybody's familiar with is the London transport. And there's hardly a year that you don't see an increase, maybe small, but they always tend to review it, every year. In fact, they just did it because I was in London. They just did it in this January. But I just told you that in Lagos State, in the last 15 years, there's only been one increase in bus prices in 15 years. Are you telling me that what you are buying, even the cost, naira, 15 years ago, do you want to compare it to now? And there's only been one increase, and that increase was only about 20% or something like that, or 30%. But even that increase does not is because we've not had this conversation that who pays for what? Who pays for what? And it's an honest discussion that the commuters need to sit at the table, the politicians need to sit at the table, the operators need to sit at the table, and we have an honest discussion on this issue. Until we want a world-class service, but it has to be paid for.
Okay, let's have that conversation.
What are the current realities? I want to talk about the current realities that, BRT commuters actually face. Now, there's the problem of security, there's the problem of long queues, having to wait for very long times before they can actually board these buses. But I want us to even start with security. Okay. Now, there are claims that around very early in the morning, 5 a.m. in the morning, we have these hoodlums that come on the buses and harass people, take
Not
their
the buses, at the bus shelter.
So you are aware of this situation?
Of course I'm aware of it.
Interesting.
But the buses and the bus shelter, I would like to believe, is the responsibility of the bus operators.
The bus shelters are not the responsibility of the bus operator. We operate the buses. Okay. But it's a societal issue. And I keep saying it, you don't pass a societal issue to a private company. Primero is not a law enforcement agency. I cannot arrest anybody. I depend on the police, I depend on LASMA, I depend on the Army and the Navy to do their job. We are not. We actually have our own private security there also. But at the end of the day, the law enforcement agencies will have to do their job. They are the only ones that have the arresting power, and also they are the ones that carry arms and ammunition. Look, they've put guns. These hoodlums have put guns on some of my staff. I cannot ask them to put their lives in danger. What am I going to go tell their parents?
Well, if they work for you, then what are we doing about it? Because it's a problem that is obviously there. So how do we fix it? Because no matter who is responsible for it, it will affect these commuters.
It does affect commuters. It does affect us. And that's why we have put some private security that we are paying for there. But at the end of the day, it's still the police that needs to be there to ensure security. Because our private security that we put on there, and I'll give Lagos State government, credit on this, because Lamata also have their own private security there. But Lamata's private security agency and our own cannot arrest anybody. They don't have an arresting power. So even if they catch somebody, they still have to hand them over to the police. The police are the only agency in Nigeria that has the authority to arrest anybody. So, until, the police, start doing their own, step up to the plate, it's a societal issue. Okay, it's not a Primero issue.
Okay, I want to come in here strongly. I'm happy for this interview because we're able to clarify some things. Number one, what we've clarified is the fact that you brought your own bus as a private company. Because,
yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong as well, and my team, the general impression is government brought the buses in and told you guys to run it.
No.
So we are aware that you brought 436 buses, 434 buses in. Secondly, you want us to let's have this conversation on cost and current realities. What's your cost like?
Let me ask you.
Yeah.
Somebody told me yesterday, somebody called me yesterday and said, oh, but Danfo's, and I asked them a question. Does Danfo provide insurance for their vehicles? No. Do they insure all the people, that enters the buses? No. Do they clean their buses on a daily basis? No. Do they provide insurance or health insurance for their staff?
So there's insurance for people that board the buses?
Yes.
In the event of
accident or something? Yes.
And I know some BRT buses have had accidents. Have you effected insurance plan?
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. So our cost structure is higher because we're trying to change the paradigm of transportation. And I give kudos to Lagos State government. All of this is their ideas. And they enforce to make sure that we do. Lamata sends our buses back to our yard if they see them that they are dirty, or something like that. So Lagos State government...
Lamata regulates you.
Yes. So Lagos State government has been very, very strict with us. And they want a world-class service. They want the same service that you see all over the world. But my question is, that's fine. But that service...
All right, we'll go for a quick break. We'll be right back.
Yes, because when we come back, we'll talk about Lagos State government being strict on you. Some people say they're not strict enough, and some of the other challenges that commuters face using the BRT. Stay with us. You're watching The Morning Show here on Arise News. Back to The Morning Show here on the Rise News. It's an interesting conversation, especially for Lagos commuters, as we have the Managing Director of Primero Transport Services, one of the BRT operating companies in the state, Mr. Fola Tinubu. Thank you so much for staying with us. Shaitan had mentioned one of the challenges, which is security at the bus terminals. But there are also challenges Lagosians face in using BRT, such as long queues. Those queues can be very Herculean and frustrating, especially with our weather.
And the uncertainty that you're even going to get into the bus.
Yes. And then there's the other one of the recklessness, especially on the Ikorodu corridor. Because again, I told you, I use the BRT on the Ikorodu corridor, so I know what I'm talking about. The recklessness of the drivers on that corridor. And we've had so many accidents on that road. Speak to these issues. What are you doing?
With regards to the recklessness, it's a zero tolerance for speeding. In fact, now, what we did about 4 or 5 months ago is we've introduced speed guns for the first time in Nigeria that we're using to monitor our buses. We have people all across from Ikorodu to TBS monitoring the speed, and it's a zero tolerance for speeding. If you're caught speeding, it's zero tolerance.
You are going as a driver?
Yes.
Are you going to affect it?
Oh, we've affected it.
I'll get your number and I will start taking pictures of your plate number. I'll be sending it to you. And I will have a lot to send to you.
Honestly, it's a zero tolerance because at the end of the day, they're carrying human beings. And anything happens, life cannot be replaced. I can replace a bus, but I cannot replace a life. So it is absolutely zero tolerance for speeding. And that's why we introduced speed guns. It's never been done in Nigeria before.
How do you train them? I hear they are very rude.
Even recruits?
Recruits, because I hear they are very rude. And this is the refrain everywhere. That it is ex-downfall bus drivers
that starts driving.
The culture is still, the culture is still the same.
Even Okada drivers.
Let me say something to you. We have almost about 700 drivers right now. There's no way you put those numbers together, you don't see one or few of them that will misbehave. I get a lot of emails, calls, also on the other side saying, "Oh, these drivers don't, was very good," and all that kind of stuff. And we have a toll-free number that will tell people.
Can you call that number out on the air so people can get it?
Is it a short code number?
I will, I think I have the number. I'll send it to you so you can, There's a toll-free number that at the back of all our buses, 2 numbers that you can call. And we also have numbered all the buses so you can tell us that this person, this bus number at so time, at so place, did this. And we'll know exactly who is behind the bus, who is driving it, and we'll discipline them after we've investigated, after investigation to make sure what you actually alleged is true. Because we cannot just say because somebody complained and it's automatically the truth. We have to investigate it. But it's absolutely zero tolerance for speeding in Primero. And all our drivers know that. With regards to the queue, I agree with you that it takes a while for people to board our buses. But it's getting better because I go out to bus shelters practically every day. And there was a time that people always spend over an hour, almost 2 hours to board our buses. The waiting time has been reduced now because we've put more buses on the road. And I've just, I'm telling you right now, God willing, by the end of the year, end of this month, we will have at least 350, 360 buses on the road daily, which will even reduce the waiting time.
Sorry, how many do you currently have running on the roads daily?
Today, I think we have just about 300.
300.
On the road today.
Let's talk about some routes. And because I've always looked, an average BRT bus takes how many people now? About 50 to 100?
No, not 100. I wish, but there was actually 42 sitting and about 20, 25 standing.
42 sitting, 25 standing. Pretty much reminds me of a Fela song.
That's 29 sitting and 99 standing.
But if we have 42 sitting, 22 standing, 25 standing, constantly on that Aja route, we can decongest traffic.
Aja?
Yes. So what is happening along that route? How are we not creating new routes? I don't know.
Well, Primero is not a Lagos State government agency.
Okay.
You should have the MD of Lamata here to talk to that. But I know for a fact that Lagos State have 14 BRT corridors planned. The first one is the one we're operating now. The second one is under construction, which is Abulegba to Oshodi. They're going to put an RFP out, I believe, later this year to ask for operators to operate that. And I believe you have to bring 300 to 350 buses for that. We will be submitting tender for that
as well.
Also. Hopefully we'll win it, but that's a Lagos State government issue. But they have 14 BRT corridors planned. But it's in their plan and budget because, they have to put the infrastructure up first. Not only do they have to do the roads, they have to do the depots, they have to do and it costs money. So their priorities the governor, the commissioner for transport, and the MD of Lamata will have to address that, which one do we go to next and all that kind of stuff. That is beyond my pay grade.
Okay.
I mean, we have touched on a lot of the issues this morning. However, you are here and you can clear a lot of things. What is that one challenge we haven't touched on that you face every day that we haven't brought up today? Something that the negotiation committees need to know that this is what you are facing as an organization.
We face, look, the system right now is not profitable. We need to put it on a profitable footing. And that's why I keep saying that we must have this conversation, between the committees, the politicians, and the operator. That's our biggest challenge right now. Because everybody yells and screams at Primero. But there's a lot that is out of our control. Part of it also is the traffic. Yesterday, I got a call that almost about 60 of our buses were stuck between K2 and Mile 12.
Why so?
In the traffic.
But they have their designated lanes that some of them don't use on the corridor again.
You see, that's the misconception. The designated lane is only about 60% of the way. If you go from Ikorodu to Mile 12, you get it. But from Mile 12 to K2, you have to go on the main road. And from Ojota over Odo Yalaro, you have to go on the road also. From Fadeyi to Barracks, you have to go on the road also. And from Stadium all the way to Lagos Island, you have to go on the road.
Well, you don't need a corridor. In England, for instance, you have a bus lane. Why don't you just put a bus lane on the road?
The question is this.
Is there a need for a corridor?
The question is this. In England, nobody there goes on the bus lane.
Yeah.
Yes. Because if you go on the bus lane, you're going to get a fine. You're going to get a ticket at home. Who obeys a bus lane here in Lagos?
Let me come in here because...
Yeah, but that's not the primary... You see, look, I keep saying it.
It's not
a societal issue. Is different, you don't, put it on the private company.
So there's a lot
Primero
going
is not a
into
law
all
enforcement
of this.
agency.
Mr. Fola Tinubu, some will wonder, yes, you're not making profit from what you've told us. Are you aware, are you conscious of the economic realities that the people of Lagos are facing at this time? It's the start of a new year, a new decade. Already we are seeing increase in tariffs. Despite the 30,000 naira minimum wage, everybody seems to be shouting. It's been erased already by all this inflation and living costs. So are you conscious of that reality? Are you putting that into consideration? Secondly, because this is an intended increase, like you said, and you're yet to discuss with the operators. However, if you do approach the operators and the Lagos State government and they do not concede to these increments at this time, what would your next step be?
My question is this. Do we want this to be sustainable? If we want it to be sustainable, then we have to find a way to make it profitable.
At a sustainable packet
And
price.
they will ask you, should the commuters be paying this?
Hold on.
Should they be at the end of this?
Well, and that's what I keep saying, that it has to be a tri-party deal. In London, that everybody keeps talking to me about, the government actually pays about 35% of the TFL.
Transport for London
subsidized.
costs.
Yes.
Costs, yeah.
Okay? I'm not asking for subsidy.
But here you're not being paid.
Precisely.
It's not profitable,
Okay, you cannot tie my hands behind my back and ask me to go to war. On the one hand, we're saying we don't want the price to increase. On the other hand, we want all these services. But nobody is talking about our costs. Nobody is talking to us that the diesel price went up. Nobody is talking that the bank is charging us commercial rates. Nobody is talking about that. Everybody, is talking about the masses, which is fine because they are the ones that use our services. They're talking about it. But if you're worried about, if you want to cap the fares, then you have to do something about the cost also. We cannot have our cake and eat it. And I keep saying, if Primero is a government agency, a governmental agency can keep on piling up losses. Because at the end of the day, the government can come and write it off because the taxpayers are backing it. But a private company cannot do that.
Okay.
And should the government, now, second question, should the government not concede to these increments at this time, what would your next step be?
I'll cross that bridge when I get to it.
I really need to ask you this now. You mentioned the word archaic, and it just took me back to London. You can go on your phone and check when your next bus route is and plan. You can up to the steps that you take onto the bus route. Are you looking at introducing any apps technology?
It's called Lagos BRT. And you can plan your journey 24 hours before.
Even when the buses are not arriving on time.
No, actually. And even all our depots, all our bus shelters, there's an LED there that tells you when the next bus is going to arrive, and it's live GPS-based system. And actually, I just got back on holiday from London, and because of my job, I always, everywhere I go, jump on the buses to see what they are doing that we're not, and believe it or not, quite a few of what they are doing, we're doing here also. Like when you're in the bus now, the bus tells you the next stop is,
yes.
All of those are,
part of the robust things.
Yes. We are not as, backwards as...
so real quickly, because we're wrapping up real soon, I've been able to establish many things from this conversation. The fact that there are many things that needs to be sorted, but I'd like to thank you very strongly, for being here, for talking to us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.